Alright, hi everybody, how's it going? I'm back here today with another video. Now, last year, if you can remember, there were a lot of rock stars that had passed away, unfortunately. And I thought this year that that maybe there wouldn't be too many that would pass away, but lately, unfortunately, there have been. You had Chuck Berry die just recently. You also had the drummer of the Allman Brothers Band who passed away, as well as the drummer of Boston who recently passed. You had the guitarist of Y&T, and you also had Jeff Nichols, who was kind of like an unofficial member of Black Sabbath. He did a lot of keyboards for Black Sabbath, and he passed away as well, Jeff Nichols. And, there's also a Chicago blues guy. I actually saw this guy perform not too far from where I live. His name was Lonnie Brooks. And he also passed away. And then just a couple days ago, Paul O'Neill had passed away. Now, Paul O'Neill, and that's what I'm going to do this video on, sort of like a rest in peace Paul O'Neill sort of tribute video. Because Paul O'Neill was one of those interesting figures in rock and roll. He was more of a behind-the-scenes guy. He wasn't really much of a musician as I'm aware of. I believe he did play guitar, I want to say, possibly keyboards as well. But he's mostly like a producer, kind of like a behind-the-scenes person. But, he was somewhat famous among people who are, familiar with hard rock and heavy metal. Probably knew who Paul O'Neill was. I don't know if I would call him a household name, but, if you're familiar with the band Savatage, which he's most famous for, as well as the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, probably know who Paul O'Neill is, or may have had heard the name. Now, Paul O'Neill actually wanted to be a musician in a band. He actually had a progressive rock band back in the 70s called Slow Burn, and he went into the studio to record an album with the band, and the album was never made. And it was never made, now maybe because he was too much of a perfectionist at the time. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he ended up scrapping the project. And then he later joined a management company and promoted some tours of various pop and rock musicians overseas. Like, I know he promoted some Madonna concerts in Japan. And then after that, he became a producer, produced a couple Aerosmith greatest hits albums. And then he worked with the band Savatage. And Savatage at this point was kind of in trouble in a way. They just came out with an album that bombed called Fight for the Rock. Now, I'm a big Savatage fan, but I didn't like Fight for the Rock, and neither did the band. I've heard interviews with John Oliva, the singer, and he said that he really didn't care for that album at all, and the band lost a lot of money. So they brought in someone who they felt could really help with the songwriting, and that was Paul O'Neill. Paul O'Neill, from what I understand, I guess he considered himself to be like a really good storyteller, and that's why, a lot of the Savatage albums are conceptual. They became conceptual, and they have pretty good stories with them. The first album he did with Savatage was Hall of the Mountain King, and you could almost say Hall of the Mountain King is kind of like a proto-symphonic metal album. He did the whole thing of Hall of the Mountain King, where it was, the Hall of the Mountain King instrumental, and then it, kicked into the song, and I always loved how they did that. The instrumental would end, and then that guitar riff would come on, da 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 da. So, yeah, just a great song, and I love that whole arrangement. They really had, some good arrangements with Paul O'Neill. And they also, you had Chris Oliva in the band, who also unfortunately had passed away in a car accident back in 94, I believe it was. But Chris Oliva was just a great guitarist, and they definitely utilized his talent, because if you listen to a lot of those old Savatage songs, you'll hear a guitar solo in the beginning of the song, a guitar solo in the middle, and then a guitar solo at the end. So they really utilized his talents quite a bit. Like I said, just a great guitar player. And Hall of the Mountain King was a success. I can even remember my mom liking the album. And that was the thing about Paul O'Neill. He did make the music appeal to a wider audience. He made the music appeal to an audience that wouldn't necessarily like a metal album. And you could definitely say that was the case with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Savatage a little bit, because I remember my mom liking a little bit of like Hall of the Mountain King, and my mom likes classical music. So yeah, after Hall of the Mountain King, it was just a string of great albums that he put out. Gutter Ballet, which was another one. After that was Streets, Rock Opera. Then I know you had Edge of Thorns. There was a Handful of Rain, Dead Winter Dead, Wake of Magellan, Poets and Madmen, and I don't know if I left anything out, but those are just some, great albums. Now, what eventually did kind of happen is Paul O'Neill did take Savatage in kind of a sort of show-tuney, kind of Andrew Lloyd Webber direction. And I wasn't as big a fan of that. Nothing against that, but I didn't think it really fit Savatage that well. And, you could hear that on Wake of Magellan. I remember getting that album and not liking it a whole lot, because he had really taken it in this, kind of Andrew Lloyd Webber show tune kind of direction. And I didn't care for that a whole lot. And maybe they kind of realized that Savatage fans might not like that, so they started the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And one of the things that also kind of led them to think that they could make a lot of money with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra was the fact that they did have a hit on Dead Winter Dead. I don't know if it was a big hit or not, but it was called Christmas in Sarajevo, I want to say. It was on the album Dead Winter Dead, and was like an instrumental. That was pretty popular. So they figured that, they could kind of do symphonic metal and, just have these real big productions. And they brought in all kinds of different musicians, metal musicians, classical musicians, and started the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And from what I understand, John Oliva, the Savatage singer, and Paul O'Neill both owned the Trans-Siberian Orchestra in partnership, from what I understand. And eventually it grew pretty big and popular that they actually had two Trans-Siberian Orchestras, one that would tour the West Coast around the Christmas season, the western part of the country, and another one that would tour around the eastern part of the country. So they kind of split it in two. And it was very popular. It really appealed to a wide audience. And as a result, from what I understand, it made John Oliva and Paul O'Neill very wealthy. In fact, I think they might be, among the most wealthy guys in rock. I do remember hearing something pertaining to that they were very rich. Not the richest from what I know, but among the richest guys in rock, just because of the popularity that the Trans-Siberian Orchestra had. So, yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about. Wanted to kind of just sort of like a tribute video to Paul O'Neill, because I was actually just looking up some stuff on him probably, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago. So I was surprised to hear that he had died on April 5th. I really was. And all I have to say right now is just rest in peace, Paul O'Neill. And if you watched this video, as always, I do want to thank you for watching. Have a great night.